Hey you guys, welcome to another developer interview here with Parole. With me this week is Damoun Shabestari. He is the game director over at First Contact Entertainment, developers of one of our favorite PlayStation VR games, Firewall, 0 Hour. Damoun, how you doing today, man? Thank you so much for joining us.
Doing good. We're busy, but we're doing great.
Yeah, this is probably the worst possible time to set up an interview.
Nah, the more we could get the word out, the better, but appreciate your time.
Excellent, man. Well, listen, man, people don't really they're not here to see me talk and listen to me, ask you lots of questions. What they want to hear directly from the horse's mouth. They want to hear the Firewall story. Can you, bring us back and tell us, where all of this began?
So this originally began with a prototype. We are big VR evangelists, and we definitely love the platform and what it possibly can do with different types of content. So we set out to do something that was originally discussed as something that can't really work yet for VR, which was locomotion, online gameplay. It's sort of a game with enough content for you to return to. So you want to keep playing, set it down, come back to it, and keep playing and progressing your player profile. So we set out to do a prototype to first knock out locomotion. That was the biggest challenge at the very start. And once we got that down and we had a map with people moving around in it, we started to do the other things that we thought were challenges with VR in mind. And one by one, we wanted to get every one of those right, which was part of that is reloading, part of that is how weapons feel, peripherals like the PS aim is really an important element, we believe, when you're playing Firewall, because it just adds that level of physical immersion as well as the headset and the virtual world you look into through the goggles of the PSVR helmet. So we definitely set out to do each of the things that you typically do with a traditional flat screen game, like player reloads. You don't have the same luxuries as doing that within VR, because the player could always just look down at their full body character and see where the hands go. And with traditional flat screens, you could get rid of the hands and bring them back into the scene and get away with a lot of that smoke and mirrors sort of aspects to hiding things, to spawning new view arms, new hands, to do what you want them to do. So yeah, when we first started, it was let's get an online game where we could walk around, run around, and fire at each other, and that's where it just started. The fun happened pretty quickly, where we just discovered that it was so fun in VR just to move around. Then once we put weapons in your hand and an objective, that added a much more meaningful experience. So that's where the ball just kept rolling, and we started, solving the challenges that was presented to us with VR in mind. And that's when, with Sony and working with the PlayStation VR, that became just clear because the PS aim was there. We wanted people with the DS4 to play. A lot of players have those. So we then started to form fit the game to these peripherals, and the gameplay elevated. Things like the animations, the way you actually throw, say, grenades in the game or plant items against walls, any part of the environment, that just came much more naturally as we developed the locomotion, the reload, the firing, the environment and geometry, and player speed is a big one too, because we didn't want to run and gun game. We wanted to get the player speed just down to the speed at which we thought felt tactical, but it didn't feel too encumbered by moving too slow. So that's when it first started. We literally had red and blue guys, just like mannequins in an environment, solving those challenges. And then from that point, once we found the core fun and the gameplay in Firewall 0 Hour, we then started filling in the assets to make the environment come alive. And yeah, you will see that in Operation Nightfall with a map like Hangar. We spent a tremendous amount of time on it, and we took what we learned even through the development and launch of the original base game of Firewall 0 Hour, which then brings us to Operation Nightfall, and kind of taking what we learned and applying it, continuing to apply it basically to anything we do moving along into the future.
You mentioned a few things that I want to kind of get back to, and the first thing is the locomotion system. You said it's one of those things you had to overcome and figure out in VR, since you guys were probably developing very early on. How did you tackle the locomotion system? Because I have to say that my co-host Desra is notorious for getting motion sick in VR, but he has no trouble at all playing Firewall. DualShock 4 aim doesn't matter, which I found shocking and very relieving.
Well, that's actually music to our ears. We love hearing that because we did spend a tremendous amount of time making sure that felt right. Part of that is you have a full body character. So when you look down, you see your contractor's model and all the gear and the way you move. Everything animates to what you would want it to do in terms of crouching or moving slowly forward until you're sprinting in a CQB style sprint forward. It has a lot to do with, it's just fine tuning it. So part of that too is the PSVR HMD, the VR helmet, and your body needs to move somewhat independently. So one of the things too in our game where we felt nobody was really providing this approach in terms of moving forward and turning and swiveling your head to look into a room without actually going in that direction. So that was part of it. I mean, all these layers all add up to what you feel at the end result, but it's independent head movement, how your character's body animates and rotates in connection with that. So I think that's a big part of it. And I'm glad to hear that you guys played and didn't feel that discomfort, because that's what we aim to do. And we even added options in the options menu, comfort options for vignetting, for instance. So if you do feel a little wheezy, we do have some options in there that could curb that pretty heavily by just darkening up the corners and edges depending on certain actions in the game.
Why can't we jump? I really want to jump in this game, like a lot.
For us, Firewall is just a 4v4 boots to the ground type of game. And when you start adding jumping, granted, that's also another challenge. It just didn't turn into the game we wanted it to, the same way as just keeping things grounded.
Yeah.
What's that?
You experimented with it though?
We experiment with a lot of things. Sometimes those don't see the light of day because, well, it's either not ready or we feel like it's not actually fitting the game and enhancing it the way it was anticipated in like a paper design path. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Is that why move support didn't make the cut too? Did you guys experiment with that?
We did. We just felt that with the thumbsticks with the DualShock and that parity between the aim was a good fit for Firewall.
Right on. Yeah, I found it shocking that it didn't have move support, but also at the same time, another Sony branded title, Farpoint, was DualShock 4 and aim only. So I figured there was some kind of analog stick reasoning behind all of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they chose that path, but that's definitely for us was just a matter of what felt right, and we definitely hit home with the aim and the DS4. We just couldn't get the move there, so we just didn't feel like it was ready for
nice.
Public. Yeah.
So as far as your background personally, I checked into your, let's call it resume, and I found a ton of Call of Duty games on that thing.
Yeah.
Did you bring what were your roles on these old Call of Duty games, and did you bring? I mean, you must have brought experience from those games to Firewall with you, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've spent a lot of time in the past. I mean, my previous position over at Treyarch was to do a lot of work within the Call of Duty franchise, and there are definitely some stuff that can be carried over, but then again, it presents newer challenges within PSVR and how to actually work around those or work through those challenges. But a lot of things that we've done in previous positions here, whether it's my background or someone else's, we try to bring as much to the table as possible from previous work. That makes sense. I mean, it definitely has a moment where it comes across. Sometimes it's like one-to-one. It's like, oh, we should do something like that, and then we do that as a base start, and then we build on top of it. But really, it comes down to bringing that to paper design, and then from there we go, well, what about VR? And then we start actually exploring how we combat those challenges, whatever it is, from reloading to opening a door or interacting with a friendly teammate.
So what you're saying is that any day now we should expect a zombie mode in Firewall.
No zombies, no zombies.
I was when you teased the self revive in the trailer, I wasn't thinking clearly, and I was like, and the first thing I thought was zombie mode. Sign me up. So I totally misread that. But man, I mean, come on, you got to consider this, right? You got two teams, somebody dies, and then suddenly you have a third team of zombies that come back, and it's three teams, man. It sounds like an amazing concept. You can use that, I swear.
For sure.
But we need to talk about this self-revive thing, though. Was that not supposed to be part of the Operation Nightfall DLC?
It's certainly a teaser. It's within Operation Nightfall. That's coming out with our second contractor, Lynx. He'll show up around mid-season. We haven't actually released the official date for that yet, but we will most likely post that soon, I imagine. So, but your eyes weren't fooling you. It wasn't a zombie, but it definitely was something that we're teasing for the future.
I see.
For Nightfall.
It looks great, man. It looks like he'll add a whole new level of strategy to the mix.
For sure.
Whatever it is, I know you're not confirming self-revive, but we'll just roll with that for now.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So there's along with to kind of go back a little bit, with all the things that you tested out with Firewall, you ended up with essentially a game with just one game mode. I mean, regardless of like the practice modes or whatever, the one that everybody plays is the 4v4 contract mode. Was there thought, or are there thoughts for adding death matches or any other kind of game modes?
Again, similar to various other things that we do in-house, we definitely played around with it, but we didn't go too far into that because that's just not how we set our objective and goals out for Firewall. As it is, I mean, we've said this in the past, but it's a 4v4 tactical shooter, and with the way it currently works, where if you are taken out and eliminated by an enemy, you still are in the battle more than you actually think you are. Yeah. And we've added some stuff to help your ability to win from, say, the support feed. We have a skill that you could detonate a C4 to try to keep you in the game. And part of that is we're just not a fast-paced shooter. We try to keep it within the tactical sense of a PvP type of game. So we also feel like if we do something like create a new game mode, it can split up player bases, and we want to keep the pool of players strong. And also, we feel that the game mode we have is quite fun, and the objectives are a primary way to win, but also can become secondary depending on your playstyle. So there is a sense of TDM within the game mode, but not in the true sense, though.
No, I totally understand. The game mode that you have, I mean, when we first played this game, I remember the first night, me and a bunch of the other YouTubers jumped in and we were playing, and we're like, this is great, man. This is a lot of fun. But I had this sense of like, I wonder when this is going to get old. Like, I wonder just playing the same mode over and over and over and over again. And then here we are, I think, 9 months later, and I'm like, nope, this isn't getting old anytime soon.
So yeah, that's what we plan to do with Operation Nightfall. It's literally our biggest content drop, as well as quality of life improvements. I know we keep saying that stuff, but the team's worked really hard to make sure that one thing for sure is the gameplay itself is more meaningful. How we get rewards and are challenged with tasks, for instance. So with Operation Nightfall, we definitely went to the drawing board in terms of how do we get people to feel like their contract handler is ultimately doling out tasks, doling out missions. And we feel like we did that, and we're going to be listening to people since the launch yesterday, that what is it that they liked about getting missions from contract handlers? What do they want to see with future content, possibly? What they didn't like also is important to us. And we'll weigh that against to how we adapt. It is a live game, so there are things we do that might not necessarily resonate immediately, but with time, maybe some people can figure out what we're trying to do and understand it and be happy with it. If not, then feedback. We try to keep our communication lines open, and I can't tell you the amount of meetings we have regarding feedback and going through social posts, Discord, everything. Stuff we said in past and videos and whatnot, but I continue to press on because that's literally our the air we breathe here is in regards to all this. So yeah, we've set up a new progression system. So going into that within this latest drop from the game yesterday, you're going to notice a whole new tab where all these missions are presented to you weekly, and they contain tasks in them. And some of these tasks are different from your challenges in the past, where it's like just eliminate 10 dudes using this weapon. We still have those, so we didn't get rid of them, but we added to that where you do a bit more than eliminate an enemy, for instance. Some of the challenges are tied to gadgets, so some of your lethal and tactical equipment. So we just try to bring in a new bit of flavor and a new way to get rewarded some of those cosmetics by completing the mission. So.
Because I mean, Operation Nightfall is obviously very, very new, and just to give everyone full disclosure here, we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. The update dropped yesterday. I have spent 4 hours in the update so far, and I've played 3 games. So this is a horrible time to have this interview. So we'll just address the elephant in the room right now, I guess. What happened with the update? It didn't go well. We had people with blue screens. We had people that weren't able to get into the game. The people who were able to get into the game had major issues in the lobby trying to find games, and there's a lot of waiting around. And man, you guys must have been frantic over there. Can you give us a little insight about what happened?
Yeah. So I mean, with all things that are tied to a live game, some things are not anticipated because, for instance, the scale at which we test and run our QA department, as well as working with Sony, could never really match the scale at which the world and the global side of things and how those are played. So there was an issue that we did patch within 24 hours of launch that addressed that issue for those that were affected by it. Fortunately, it wasn't everyone, so that's a good thing. But we did definitely jump on that as soon as possible. As soon as we heard from some of our fans that do play and give us DMs of feedback and or bug reports, we got that immediately, and we had our engineering department jump on it as soon as they possibly can, and we fixed it. So we fixed that particular issue. We are now working on the next issue, and that's just how it goes. Once we address one issue, we are focused on the next. And that's something I actually want to press for the community to understand that does happen. We don't just fix an issue and then go home and pop champagne. We work on the next item, and it's prioritized, and it's scheduled, and we got to make sure that we have the proper testing as far as we can. Again, the scale at which we're unable to test can reveal some unfortunate sessions for those affected. And then we have to do what we do best, which is identify the problem, fix the problem, test the problem, and then run it again and see what else pops up, if anything.
Yeah. It must have been extremely frustrating. I saw a lot of comments even on my end over here without Parole, so I can only imagine the stuff that you guys saw on your end. But we always like to remind people that developers, teams of people working on the games that you love, they're real people, and any time a game doesn't get released in a certain territory, anytime a bug gets accidentally put into a game at launch or whatever that doesn't get fixed right away, it's so disconcerting to have people thinking that this was for some reason done intentionally by a developer.
Yeah. It's the end of the day, the consumer wants to play the game. I can't fault anybody for that, and I do want to let people know that we do jump on these things immediately as we hear them, and we're not alone either. We get support from Sony, we get support from the community, we get on the issues as fast as humanly possible. But yeah, it's not that it goes unnoticed. So I do appreciate that, by the way, pointing out that these things do take time, and it's not something that we overlook. It's something we react to if it does happen, and we have to make the best of it.
Sure. Yeah. No, I was very happy to see that first patch launch at 4:00, I think, my time, a.m. I jumped in right away to check it out. It's like, oh, good, it's fixed. And as you said, there are more fixes that need to happen, but I'm very glad to hear that you guys are on top of that.
Cool. Thank you.
So there's quite a few questions that the loyal Game Cats have asked in the community that I want to pass along to you. So we can kind of do a rapid fire thing here if you want to tackle these one by one. Our loyal Game Cat Nick Mulo, the Game Cat, says, with the occasional day one issues that you've had with major patches, have you ever contemplated community beta testing?
We're a pretty small team. We've definitely talked about it and discussed it. That's certainly something we may even discuss further, but it also presents itself as challenges by doing that, because in order to make, say, a beta build, we have to dedicate a portion of the team to construct that, and that sometimes it's a hard thing to juggle, but it's not something that we haven't talked about, or we always talk about these kinds of stuff. So that's something we can definitely, I'll take it back and discuss it further with folks, but it's a difficult thing to confirm with, and confirm on, rather, sorry.
Sure, of course. And our newest moderator, Rypop, has like 17 questions, so I'll try to whittle it down to a couple here.
Sure.
He says, they're all good questions, though, so this will be interesting. He goes, have you ever thought of putting in a round system, best 3 of 5, so you're not always kicked back to the lobby waiting for the next round to start?
We actually have spec'd out a round system, and again, this is all just internal development, work in progress stuff that we test with as much free time that we have in order to test it. It's something we've discussed, but there's currently no plans to put in a round system yet.
So I'm gonna actually change one of his questions. I'm gonna add my own side of this. You talked about quality of life earlier and addressing those issues. He's specifically asking, have you thought about implementing a penalty system for anyone who just quits the match mid-round? But I'd like to add to that. I think the most requested thing, and I think you probably know where I'm going with this, the most requested thing I keep hearing about Firewall or for First Contact is dedicated servers. Is that in the cards at all?
There's currently no official set plans for that. Again, it's one of those things where it's discussed, and as a smaller team, we have to weigh out how much resources are spent on one thing or another. But we have worked to improve, say, matchmaking, for instance. We've had a few quality of life patches that have included some improvements to that, and we continue to plan to do that. But as far as dedicated servers, there's currently no plans.
And penalties for someone quitting the game mid-round?
So the penalties is something we've discussed, and it's definitely still in discussion. And we have to basically get our ducks in a row there and figure out how we want to implement, a reputation system that works sort of under the hood as far as what the end user's doing. If he quits often, he can be flagged as someone who's not fit for a host. So that can be prioritized, for instance. But this is all stuff we've talked about and we're continuing to talk about. I wish I could tell you guys more. I really wish I could.
No, I was under no false pretense that you were going to come here and be like, oh, here's our roadmap for the next year. Hand it over. You're like, Brian, I know we haven't showed this to anybody else, but here, you can see this. But the game cats would have my head if I didn't ask all these questions.
No, it's totally appropriate.
Nice. I'm not using it for anything. They can have my head. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And then, I think the best way to end this the rapid fire questions is by asking a question from my friend and loyal co-host Godcanon, who says, "Are you eventually thinking about making a sequel, or do you just want to add to the current game?"
Our current plans with Firewall's universe is to expand it. I mean, Nightfall is a great step in that direction of addressing some of the quality of life improvements, providing new content, and also providing new systems and features that weren't even there to begin with. And so hopefully people see that the evolution of it and the growth from it. No current plans on any sequels. We want to dedicate all of our guys on Firewall and making sure it's the best product right now, especially with Nightfall. It's certainly, again, I'll say it again because it's the biggest update, and it's starting to feel more alive in the sense that when you do load up, you'll notice that you're in a completely different environment. Why that is not really described to you. It's sort of like a community-driven narrative outside of that. Like, why are we in this new area? Sort of letting the community fill in the blanks. And then the missions and how you acquire those are certainly an approach to make it feel like the world's a bit more alive. Contract handlers are feeding you missions that give you crypto, give you experience, and expand your portfolio of cosmetics. So that's the answer to that. It's basically growing Firewall 0 Hour right now with these operations.
Now, with the addition of like the whole season pass and charging for, specific parts of the new DLC drop, do you feel like you're holding true to the original statement that you're only going to have microtransactions and charges for cosmetic upgrades? Because there is at least one contractor being held behind the paywall. Is that correct?
It's a timed op pass exclusive, and everything else in terms of it's free. We have free missions, so if you choose not to go in the direction of grabbing an op pass, you can still load up the game, grab the update, and the maps are free. The 3 weapons are free, and then the skills do show up in your unlock progression system after operation's done. But we definitely made sure that we wanted to make it a cosmetic reward system, and anything in terms of a weapon is available even to those that don't pick up the op pass. There's actually more to the operation for folks that don't want to pick up the op pass, but for those that do are rewarded pretty heavily, and it should, in relation to picking that up, present value. Because when you do jump into these premium missions that give you rewards that are only given to you if you have the op pass, you'll see some of that content is it's certainly stuff that we feel is of value to justify that op pass. And with the time progression, we want to give players some bit of exclusive, social boasting about items they got because they achieved a set of objectives in the tasks and the missions. So it gives that feeling of exclusivity to those that completed said missions. So
yeah. I think that's what cosmetics are really all about, is all about boasting. So that seems to fall right in line with the message that you're delivering. I do want to say, from a personal standpoint, it took me a little while to get the hang of the new airport hangar map, but it is, I think, by far my favorite map. There's so many areas, and it's diverse, and I love how very frequently I get funneled into the middle, and it's just an all-out firefight. And I'm a big fan of that map. I can't wait to see what you guys have next. It's going to be great.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to you guys checking it out as well. I'm glad to hear that about Hangar, though. It's definitely one of our. I keep saying this with every new map we make. It's like one of our favorite new maps. But that's I think a good thing, because it definitely shows that we've learned a lot and we're applying the fun in areas in a different way, in a variety of ways, enough to create a new feeling of a map. So.
All right, enough of the hard-hitting questions, man. I want to hear about what you guys do for fun. I mean, obviously, you guys are spending a ton of time working on Firewall and bringing us updates and new maps and DLC.
Yeah.
But like, you guys must be playing other PlayStation VR games in the office, right? Like, what are your favorites?
We definitely try to get our hands on every experience we possibly can, and sometimes those of us who are working too much and don't have time get the download from others. But I want to say we try everything. I mean, I'm into Days Gone right now, so some of that is not VR related, but definitely enjoy playing other games like that. So Days Gone, we have Blood and Truth, you guys. That's out. That's exciting. We have
so close to being out.
Yeah,
Days
so
away.
close to being out. Sorry, so that's coming out. So we have what's wrong with me? Apex Construct, Deracine. I'm not even sure I'm saying that right, but I love that. So yeah, we do play a lot of VR, whether it's a bow and arrow move controller type of game or a story-driven narrative like Deracine. We try to play as much as we possibly can, and there's a lot of cool stuff out there. So it's just not enough time to play them all.
Oh, dude, you're preaching to the choir. Promise me. I promise you.
My backlog is too big.
Oh God, I try to review everything that comes out. It's my backlog is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Listen, Damoun, thank you so much, man. This was enlightening and fun, and it was nice to finally put a face to the name. I really, really appreciate you taking some time out. I know you guys are super duper busy, but
sure.
I appreciate you hanging out with me a little bit today.
Ryan, thank you, man. Appreciate your time. We appreciate your guys' videos too. Love watching those here.
Oh, that makes me really happy to hear. Listen, make sure you stay in touch, and obviously we'll pass the word along for any updates or anything you need to pass on to the community, and keep us posted about what's next for Firewall.
Sounds good. We definitely will.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. All right, you guys. So that does it for another developer interview here without Parole. Obviously, I want to thank Damoun Shabestari and everybody at First Contact Entertainment, along with our friends at Sony who helped facilitate make this interview happen. Obviously, I used to do these things every single week, but it got a little excessive, so I'll still do them whenever I have the chance. It just won't be so much on a set schedule. So, until next time, I'm Brian Paul, and I love you all.